Hey, what is up, y'all? Welcome to Cocktail Hour here at Heavy Cardboard, where, well, I'm joined by Liz Davidson of Beyond Solitaire. So, Liz, thanks for hanging out tonight.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, to be honest with you, you were requested by a number of folks, and I was like, you know what? That's a great idea because you dig heavy games, and yeah, let's do this.
Yeah,
So,
I'm delighted to have been requested. That's so nice.
yeah, I mean, seriously, that's got. I thought that was pretty cool. People, because I asked my patrons, I was like, hey, who do y'all want me to sit down with? And a number of them. This wasn't just one or two, but a number of them were like, hey, what about touching base with Liz? She hosts Beyond Solitaire and see. I mean, she digs heavy games. So, and I was like, let's do it, and here we are. So, yeah, cool. You're in Atlanta, right? Atlanta?
Yeah. Yes, I'm in Atlanta.
All right. How is the weather there?
It's hot. I am grateful for the modern invention of air conditioning so that I don't have to notice.
Seriously, stay inside. I don't want to say it's an advantage of COVID because I don't want to make light of that, but I'm staying in a lot more. And yes, air conditioning, even though up here in Boston it's nowhere near as hot as it is down there, it still gets hot. I mean, it's still hot.
You know, I went to grad school in Connecticut, and I remember feeling hotter in the summer there than I ever did in the South because I had to have a window unit AC in my apartment.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it wasn't as hot as it actually got where I grew up. I'm from Texas. But it still felt worse.
So what are you drinking tonight? Now, I know it's non-alcoholic, but what are you drinking tonight?
Oh, I'm like the least. So I'm born in the South. I live in the South, but
so
it's
sweet tea?
It's unsweet iced tea. But I put it in a real glass so that it would fit in better.
Okay, all right. I mean, truly, it should be a mason jar, though, shouldn't it? I mean,
I don't have any of those.
See, well, I do. See, I when I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed in Beaufort, South Carolina, the entire time when I wasn't deployed. And between that and when I went to A school, Millington, Tennessee, I got hooked on sweet tea. Nowadays, I can't handle that much sugar. And so I'll do like half sweet, half unsweet, but mason jars, yeah. So.
Yeah, the reason I drink unsweet now is that, so Coca-Cola used to be my drink of choice, and I went a few days without drinking any, and I was having the worst withdrawal headaches I've ever had in my life. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to push through and not drink it anymore, and I haven't had any since last October.
That's awesome.
So I just quit. I was like, you know what, I'm not going to try to switch to Diet Coke or Coke Zero. It's too close to the real thing, and I'll just be sad. So I switched to unsweet tea because it's like still a drink, so it's not like, oh, I just got water. It feels something special. But it's not gonna add any calories. There's some caffeine, you know.
I like that. Hey, good on you. All right. Yeah, that's awesome. I should do that, honestly. I have a Moscow Buck. Now, before everyone yells at me, I don't have copper mugs. First off, and second, if you guys have ever watched, and I've talked about his show a number of times on here, How to Drink. This guy Greg hosts a massive YouTube channel called How to Drink. And I'm not a big drinker, believe it or not, even with the cocktail hour thing, but I love his show. I think he's got a great personality. And he had talked about how the brass or the copper mug was actually just a sales trick to get it, because I think the inventor's girlfriend or wife or something like that. They had some sort of in with this company that made these copper mugs, and they were just trying to sell them. So he served.
So it's a gimmick.
100% gimmick. But traditionally, a Moscow Mule should be in a copper mug, and a Moscow Buck is a Moscow Mule, but with gin instead of vodka. And I prefer gin, so Moscow Buck it is. So cheers and welcome to the show, Liz. And to everyone else out there. See, Rocky even says it. It's a marketing ploy. Exactly. See, he gets it. All right. So, Georgia. Now, I don't want this to be a huge bummer, but I heard your guys' mayor and governor are fixing to, there's quite the to-do about the masks and everything down there. That's...
Yes. I will say outright that I am very pro wearing a mask.
As am I.
And I will also say that despite the governor's alleged appeals to our better instincts, when I go to the store, there are people who like go bah at me and make loud comments about how it's just a cold and how stupid it is to wear a mask.
Seriously?
So,
People actually say that out loud to you?
That happens down here. Yes, it does. And so I just ignore it because why would I give attention to that and keep wearing my mask? But everyone who's saying, oh, you can appeal to the better nature of people, you don't need a mandate. I don't know about that.
Wow. Wow. That's surprising. Legitimately. I understand people maybe are brave enough to give you sideways looks, but to actually say that? Seriously?
Yeah, but like they don't say it to you. It's like something that happens in your earshot.
Yeah. So you know it's,
I feel upset, but I don't feel upset. I just feel annoyed.
I'm trying to... I don't bring politics onto the show, really, or anything. And I don't care what side of the aisle anybody falls on.
This shouldn't be political, though. That's the thing. It just shouldn't be a political issue.
Why is wearing a mask a problem?
I don't know. I would really like myself and my neighbors to come out of this alive, regardless of their personal beliefs.
Seriously? And you're a teacher.
I am. Yeah, they are currently, so my district is currently the only district in the metro Atlanta area that has not declared 100% digital return to school. So right now, my colleagues and I are preparing for an in-person return. Students have been given the choice to go digital or in person, but of course teachers, in order to provide in-person services, don't exactly have a choice. And so that's my reality at the moment. They took away our rosters so we wouldn't see them changing. But the last time I looked, there were 24 in-person kids in one of my classes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, the thing is so hard is teachers, we love our jobs. Like, I think a lot of people see us not wanting to return as some sort of like laziness or, you know, lack of willingness to. That's not really it at all. We love our kids. We love to be in the classroom with kids. And I do believe that kids learn the best in person from a teacher. I don't think that online learning is ideal, but it's definitely more ideal than sick people and like kids taking the virus home to their grandparents and, you know, all the unforeseen consequences of all of this. So we'll see what happens. I'm trying to stay calm.
I can't imagine how anybody would think that of teachers big picture, because it's not to make light of it, but nobody's going into becoming a teacher because it's a really lucrative career choice. You get into it, I imagine, because you love it and you want to, you know, help shape the minds of the future. Like, I mean, you gotta love kids in some degree. So why anybody would think that is just terrible. I'm sorry that's
I think, well, what it really is, and I understand, I just don't like it, is that I know that people are desperate because our economy is in trouble. They want to go back to work, and in order to get back to work, it is imperative to send the kids to school because it's hard to work and have kids doing school at home. And so, you know, I understand the instinct to want to send kids back, but do you want to send them back and have them come home with something that doesn't hurt them, but maybe hurts you, the neighbor, your mom, and everyone around you? So, you know, we'll see what happens.
And the thing that people are missing in all this is, okay, sending the kids back, but in order to have the kids back, the staff has to be there. And I mean, I understand that you're younger, but I imagine not everybody at the staff at your school is on the younger side of things.
No, and lots of teachers are immune compromised, and they don't have a choice about, you know, you have to choose between your paycheck and your benefits or trying to take a stand but losing your job. You know, it's a really not a great situation. But one thing I will say is that I do love my job. I really like to teach. I'm a Latin teacher, and so I get to introduce kids to the weirdness of the ancient world and mythology. And, you know, my Latin program is huge. I'm actually the 6th and newest Latin teacher in my program. And 750 kids signed up to take Latin last year with us. And
on purpose, like they chose to take it.
The only larger programs I can think of in the country are programs where taking it is mandatory.
That's amazing. Like, I wouldn't think that it's popular, number one, and number two, in Atlanta, like that wouldn't be the place that I would think.
It's actually because our department head is an amazing person and a great teacher, but he actually is from Alabama and has been moving and living around the South for many years. And so, he landed there and has kind of been in orbit. So we all just kind of like come back and work with him. So, I have great colleagues. My students are really fun. This past year, so actually I had a good job and I rolled the dice and took this job thinking that it would be the one for me to stay in for a really long time. And despite everything that's going on, as long as we all, make it, I think that that's true. I really, really love the team I'm working with. I love the school I'm working with. I love the kids. And like this year I got to look at the roster for the upper levels I'm teaching and like recognize people on the list. It just felt so good. And I wish that it wasn't, marred by this.
Sure. No, that's awesome to hear, though. What grades do you teach?
So I teach high school, so 9 through 12.
Okay, all right.
I'm actually teaching mostly freshmen next year. I'll be teaching mostly Latin 1. But that's actually great. You start with mythology, and we always start with mythology is horrible. There's no question. So, we teach them mother and father and son and, like, spouse. And then we tell them the story of Gaia and Uranus, because Gaia has a son that she then marries. And watching the kids process that in Latin, because we don't speak very much English in our classes, is hilarious. Because, like, you're telling them a story, and they're like, yeah, Mater, yeah, Filius, yeah. And, like, you're like, oh, they got married. And the kids are like, what?
Wait, huh?
Wait, can I understand that? It's like, yes, you know enough Latin to learn horrible things. Congratulations, kids.
That is fantastic. That is awesome. So, like, what inspired you to get into wanting to teach Latin specific? Like, what?
So I have this like weird long journey with that. I actually started out in high school with Spanish. I took Spanish all the way through AP, but I was a confirmation class Hellion, and I wanted to learn about ancient religions, and Latin was the closest thing I could get in school. And also, I took this this is so lame. I took this SAT vocabulary class with the school's Latin teacher, and she and I really hit it off. So I wanted to take Latin, and I took it. And it changed my life. Like, how you try a bunch of things and you're like, okay at this, and, you can get somewhere with that, but then you try something and it's like you were born to do it. Like, I took Latin and it was like, yes, like, this is the perfect thing. And so I took it junior and senior year of high school, and my parents thought I was going to major in, like, political science or something in college, and I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to major in classics. And they were like, okay, honey, we support you. And
that's good. That's good, because academia really is all that really affords you, isn't it? As far as a direction, like there's not a lot of
people who major in Latin in college go to law school, medical school. So
I guess that makes sense.
There's a lot of branch out.
Okay, that makes sense.
I did want to be an academic. I thought I was going to be a professor when I grew up. I already knew where I wanted to go for my PhD program. Like, I looked it up in high school, and I was like, I'm going to go there. And I did.
That's amazing. So, all right.
Yeah. So I studied classics in Chicago. I went to Chicago. And then I got a PhD, and I did that at Yale. It was in religious studies, like technically ancient Christianity. So I studied, like, Coptic, which is this Egyptian language that is, like, the last phase of the Egyptian language. And, like, I can read Greek, that kind of stuff. But, like, I did, like, archaeology in Egypt, and I had a lot of fun.
Oh, that would be amazing.
It was cool. But I taught my very first class by myself, and it was, like, New Testament Greek for future ministers. And they did not want to be in there because I thought that just learning a dead language was an important thing to do, because I'm a huge nerd,
That's
but
awesome.
They didn't want to be there. So the process of teaching them Greek and, like, figuring out how to connect with them and help them want to take Greek made me realize, like, oh, wait. And I was horrible at teaching, like, the first quarter. It was really bad. And then I, like, kind of figured it out and realized, like, oh, no, I think I need to be a teacher. So I actually joined Teach for America, lived in North Carolina for a few years, and then got a job in Atlanta, and now I live here.
This is an amazing story. That is really cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, and actually I'm really happy that I went on my Teach for America stint. I know people have mixed feelings about it, and I understand. But I was actually put into special education teaching my very first year of teaching. And I did case management, and I co-taught math and English. And then I started a Latin program the next year, and what was so cool about it is kids who know you take your class. So most people think of Latin as, like, the elitist class where, only the honors kids take Latin. And I had everyone in my Latin class, and it was amazing. And it actually kind of led me, so I teach in a different style than most traditional Latin teachers. We speak I don't even have desks in my classroom. The kids just have chairs because we like move so much. We talk entirely in Latin. A lot of times I'll teach them Latin by like saying stuff and like drawing a picture on the board to like indicate what I'm talking about. They speak with me from day one. They write from within the first couple months. And
good on you. This sounds like if you were, I mean, if I had this kind of teacher when I was in school, not only the way it sounds like you go about teaching it, but it's pretty clear the passion comes through. And I think that the kids pick up on that. And I say kids, I mean, yes, they are kids, but you're talking 14 to 18, right?
Yeah, they think I'm terminally uncool. It's hilarious. Like, I mean, I know I've never been cool, so like I get it, but
hold on, don't they know you're a YouTube star? Like,
actually, I tell them that I have a YouTube channel because then they don't want to look it up. If they think it's a secret, then they want to know. But if you're like, yeah, I have a board game channel on YouTube, they're like, okay, that's got to be boring because you told me about it, and then they just never look.
Reverse psychology. See, I'm new to being a step parent, so I need to learn these tips. So I like this. This is good stuff. All right, nice. So, board games. How'd that happen?
I always played just traditional board games and card games and stuff with my family. Some of my earliest memories are like playing hearts with my family.
Mm-hmm.
My parents used to leave me at my grandparents' with my brother, and my grandfather would just beat my ass at chess repeatedly. It was bad.
Good on him, not taking it easy on you. Good, all right.
And then my parents would come back from like the Golden Nugget or whatever, and they would have these like decks of cards and like dice, and I thought they were just magical, So I always loved like gaming paraphernalia. And then I played a lot of games with one of my high school teachers, who I actually interviewed for my podcast recently. It was super fun. He has kids playing things like Here I Stand in his AP Euro class.
Yes.
Now. But we were playing allies in that era, right? But like, he was an influence on my life. And so then in college, I played mostly video games in college. And then I went to grad school and I got introduced to Magic the Gathering because I had friends who played it, and Settlers of Catan, and it was just over.
So I think I know the answer to this before I even ask it, but how did you get attracted to the heavier side of the hobby then?
I've always been an omni gamer. If something looks interesting, I'll play it. But because I like history, if something looks interesting, I'll play it. So, I've never been particularly, my philosophy is that games are just games and that you can learn anything really. Of course, I've also intellectually tortured myself my entire life. So it's got 3 rules. Yeah, okay.
I think all of us that swim in the deep end of the pool, meaning the heavier end of games, I think there's a little bit of masochist in all of us, that we all like whether it's just the difficult, the painful, or just the super esoteric. I think there's some appeal that all of us have with this. I mean, because I had mentioned this, and now I'm drawing a complete and total blank, the Hollenspiel game. Agricola.
Oh,
yeah,
Agricola.
Agricola.
Yeah.
So when I was getting ready for my live stream, I went looking, and apparently I have a timer set. That's always professional. There we go. When I went looking, because just like people look for my videos and your videos, I found yours. And I was like, oh, okay. So I let you teach me how to play Agricola so I could teach my audience how to play Agricola, Master of Britain. Not that Agricola, not the Agricola people.
Yeah.
But
Agricola, Master of Britain. So like Tacitus's father-in-law, Agricola.
I love that you know this history. That warms my heart. Because Roman history, I have a really big sweet spot for. My favorite book of all time is still the Iliad and the Odyssey.
They're so good.
Yes.
Probably the closest thing to a genuine spiritual experience I've ever had is reading the Iliad in Greek. It's just so beautiful. There's nothing like that. It's gorgeous. In English, if y'all have not read I, Claudius, you should. Have you seen I, Claudius?
No, I have not.
Dude, it's from the 70s. It's got Derek Jacobi in the title role, and it's definitely based on ancient gossip rags. Well, Robert Graves wrote a novel that was based on ancient gossip rags, and it became the show. But it's the best show. It's still it's my absolute favorite of all time.
I have a notebook that I keep in my table right here. So, I, Claudius goes into it.
Yes,
Noted.
definitely watch it. Like I have watched it with students, although I definitely know where all the boob shots are, so I can actually want to show them in class.
Yeah, I imagine the emails you would get from parents.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Yeah,
But every
no.
time I do decide that I have a class that I can like entrust with the legacy of I, Claudius, it's really funny. I'm like, okay, you cannot have your cell phones. You have to pay attention. I'm only gonna make you watch one episode, and then if you don't like it, we'll stop. But you have to really watch it, and because it moves at a pace. Like there's lots of little subtle barbs, and like it's just not really the kind of show that you can tune in and out and really fully appreciate what's happening. There's
Okay.
lots of like politics and like emotions going across people's faces, so you can tell what's gonna happen next. But you have to watch, and the kids watch it, and I'm like, okay, so what do y'all think? And like, can we watch another one?
That's
Every time you get them, it's so great. Like I had one class that loved it so much that, you know, I ended up giving away copies of I, Claudius as like the senior book award to kids in that class because they were so into it that was like going to be a meaningful present for them.
how, I mean, isn't that is why you get into teaching, I imagine, right? It's for those moments right there, right?
Yeah, like I love sharing fun stuff. Like I think the reason I became a teacher instead of a professor, you know, is that I like the stories that I've heard a million times are never old because they're always new to the people you're teaching. And it's new and it's different every time you teach it to like a different group of kids. They all have such a different chemical makeup, like pheromones, but also like different personalities. And they, you know, you have to find different ways to reach them and make them like things. And I'm sort of a natural salesperson in that way. I like the challenge of kind of convincing them to love what I love. And so this past year, that meant telling them, we did a series of stories about Elagabalus, who's like this teenage emperor who did a lot of really messed up stuff. Like he once hid a lion in his house and then told people to go explore his house and somebody got killed. He had a lottery where you could get a house, but you could also win like a dead dog or like a box of angry bees.
As you do.
Right?
Okay.
So when the kids learn this stuff, they're like, what? Yeah, that really happened, kids. What? And I don't know what their parents hear about their school day, but nobody ever seems to complain, so it's all right.
I mean, but again, okay. So trying to put on a parent hat with this, that getting kids excited about learning is, I think, the holy grail for being a teacher. I would think. Again, I guess I'm a professional teacher in a sort, not
Yes.
the same way you do, but I'm talking here on the channel. And I've always had an affinity towards it. But obviously my base, I don't want to say my students, that sounds weird, but the
audience.
Yeah, audience, right. Obviously are adults, but I would imagine that's got to feel so just rewarding, getting that, seeing their, like, the aha moments and to see their eyes light up and all of that, just, and
Oh, yeah.
the questions that I imagine they ask.
I get weird questions, but I never mind. You know, I'd rather them ask me weird questions than ask me no questions. I actually, so somebody once observed my class and described my teaching style as chaotic. So I'm actually a very orderly person in my own life, but kids like to be loud and like to move and they like things a little crazy. So I kind of run my classes right at the edge between in and out of control.
If it works, I mean, in the end, you're not doing anything illegal, then good on you. I mean, kudos to your school for allowing you the freedom to be able to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually what's interesting is I also do, so Latin is both a language and an extracurricular activity, which is sort of neat. So I do this thing called the Junior Classical League, and their national convention is online next weekend.
Okay.
And I spent my morning editing questions for this like quiz bowl game called Katan, which is like the Latin word for struggle. So like I played it when I was younger, and I was like really intense about it. Now I'm like the world's laziest Katan chair, and it's like, yeah, if you want to study, that's fine. But like, but you know, it's really fun to see like the full range. So like I like teaching kids who are just kind of in Latin because they need to take a class and they like to be with you. And then, like, kids are all the way up to, like, I must read this dictionary of mythology and learn all the facts. So, like, in Latin, you get, like, that full range from, like, the kid who you just want to have a relationship with because they are a cool kid and they need a teacher that's study at school. And then, you know, you have the kids that are really, like, you see that competitive shine in their eyes, and I like that too.
That's awesome, man. This has made my whole day hearing about this. This is really cool. Now, I'm gonna butcher this name. Das Breitschwart asks, how do you make kids think about history without just learning facts like good thing I don't talk for a living, like alternate history mind games or guessing consequences or what? How do you go about, what's the, I mean, I'm sure there's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, it kind of depends on the class and what they want. But one thing that we make sure to do is, we don't teach our students out of a history textbook. We write stories. So we choose sort of interpretations of those stories and kind of give them an emotional edge. So I actually would love to write a novel about her. I've been thinking about it. But I wrote a story series last year about Nero's mom, Agrippina the Younger.
Okay.
And kind of explored themes of how she loved her son and was getting sort of scared of him, and how she had a lot of power and he didn't like that. And so they're learning about all those sort of relational tensions that drive history while also actually learning history. It's really more for them, I think, about helping them create an emotional connection with what's happening and seeing what are the themes, what's fair. And then we actually looked at, and I had them look at coins and identify people on coins that had Claudius and Nero and Agrippina on them, because they could read enough Latin at that point to pick out the names. And so we talked about what's on the coin, why would you put this on a coin? What would you put if you were on a coin? And have them think about statements about power and authority, and why would somebody make this statement about themselves? Because everything that you put out there about yourself is some sort of statement, right? What are you telling me about yourself? And then if you can connect it to them, then they connect to the history a lot faster.
This is amazing. Where were you when I was in high school? Seriously, this is amazing. This is really good stuff. That's really cool. Part of the reason I got into war games specifically is because I'm, I don't want to say a student of history, but I have a thirst for learning about things I don't know, especially about history, whether it's Roman times or whatever. And Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. Then there's Mike Duncan's The History of Rome. There's a number of podcasts out there that I really, really enjoy. And Dan Carlin recently did a little, what he calls, they're like side podcasts, because he comes out with a podcast every 4 or 5 months, because they're 4 to 6 hours a piece, and they're massively deep. But it was about Philip II's wife. I'm trying to think now. I can't think of her name. I'm terrible on the spot like this. Yeah, Alexander the Great's mom.
Alexander's mom.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's like Olympias or something.
That's it, Olympias, and how she is one of the greatest, most oh my God stories in the history of humanity, and how has nobody made a movie about her life and everything. And hearing about this, Alexander the Great kind of sucks all the air out of the room, because
his father was amazing in his own right. And his mother was a very Alexander would not be Alexander without his mom.
Right, and he wouldn't be without his dad either. Philip II, that was a bad man, just like his mom was a bad woman.
Philip II was going to trash Alexander as his heir, and then kind of reinstated him.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think about, if things had happened differently, or if Philip had managed to have another kid with that next wife, history would have turned out different. I'm really glad it did, though.
And I just don't think Philip II gets the due that he deserves, because without the groundwork that he laid, Alexander doesn't get to become Alexander the Great.
Right.
But this is awesome. Good
but
stuff.
also think about it in mythology, right? All the gods kill their fathers, or fathers try to prevent themselves from having sons because they don't want to be outshone by their kid. Mm-hmm. It's the worst prophecy a god can hear is oh, you will have a son who is greater than his father. And it's why is that such a bad thing? Of course I'm a teacher, so my whole point of life is to make students who are better than me.
Right, the next generation to improve upon, right?
Yeah. Oh, just answer. So I see Kabuki Kid. Hey, Kabuki has a question. Nero did kill his mother. He tried to kill her once with a collapsible party boat, but she swam to shore and lived, and so he had to send someone to stop her.
There were a lot of assassinations back in the day. A lot.
Yeah. It's like Game of Thrones back then.
Seriously, it really was, without the dragons that we've found yet. So let's talk about Beyond Solitaire. So why did you start it? Because it was January 2016, wasn't it?
Yep, that's when I first decided to put up my site. So it's a combination thing. So I actually became a solo gamer because Magic the Gathering was too expensive, and I loved deck construction. So I picked up the Lord of the Rings living card game.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make my own decks, and I was like, oh, and I can do this by myself. I don't even have to wait for someone to play with me. This is awesome. And so I became a solo gamer at that time. And so I was like, wait, I can play board games by myself. Like, what other board games can I play by myself? So I started exploring YouTube, and, you know, I went on the same journey that I think a lot of people go on. Like, I watched Ricky Royal's Mage Knight series, and I was like, wow, I wish that I can make something that is as cool as Ricky made.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's also, you know, solo gamers like to talk about what they have played. It's a weirdly social branch of board gaming. Like, you'd think, oh, they're solo gamers, they don't socialize, but actually we just like to play games and then talk about them later. And so, you know, I wanted to kind of communicate and like be part of that. And so I just started a blog where I just wrote, and I didn't really have a lot of focus in it for a long time. You know, I just kind of like wrote whatever. Like, my first couple of years on there were really spotty. I didn't really have a review format. I just kind of like did whatever I felt like. Mm-hmm. And then later in that year, then things just started to happen. Like, later in that year, Sam Healy tweeted that he was looking for people for Throat Punch Lunch. And I was like, maybe I'm meant to see this tweet. I will. I don't really believe that sort of thing. But like, I was like, you know, this tweet is here. I'm going to seize this moment. And I'm just going to email him and see what happens. And so I filmed my first video on like my computer webcam, like in an iPhone 5C. And I'd never edited a video in my life. And you know what? I started making them. And then a year later, I was like, maybe I want to make my own videos. So I made a YouTube channel. And then it just, you know, it just goes on and on.
I can completely and totally relate to very similar to that story, because the way I started the show was, I mean, I was listening to Dice Tower, I was listening to Secret Cabal, I was listening to a bunch, Gaming Pit, and a bunch of board game as well as non-board game podcasts, and nobody was really talking about the games that me and my friends were playing. And I was always raised that if you're going to bitch about a problem, then offer up a solution. And
yes,
here it is. So there you go. So yeah, I totally get that. I really, really do. So, but why solitaire games? Just because you just wanted, like, to where you didn't have to wait for other people? I mean, was it that simple?
Yeah. Yeah, it actually is that simple. I do have a gaming group, and I play with kids whenever I can, and I like to play. My interest in playing kind of outstrips my opportunity to play, so I play a lot of solo games.
Okay.
I think it's also that it's very utilitarian for a review channel, as many other media people are discovering during this time, because you don't need a game group to get enough plays. You know, so my reviews, people don't really know this, because I try not to talk too much about exact play counts, because I feel like nobody talks about their play counts. But I play games a lot before I review them. And I really want to take my time and like get enough plays in where I really feel like I can make a good assessment of a game. That's so hard to do with a game group, because you have to have somebody who's going to sit with you and play a game 10 plus times to like to help you assess. That is a commitment. My game group loves to play new things. And so, you know, for me to make responsible reviews, solo's the way to go, because I know that I can actually like get enough plays in. And I also like solo
because you've got one person to worry about, right? You don't have to worry about scheduling and everything else. Yes.
No, it's just what I want when I want it. And like, I'm totally selfish in that way. Like, actually, you know, I'm also, even before solo gaming, like even in college, you know, so I got a scholarship to go study German in Berlin for one summer at like a Goethe Institute. It was really cool and I loved it. But everybody was talking about, let's go spend a weekend in Paris. We don't know when we'll be back in Europe. And one by one, people from that Paris trip dropped, didn't want to go. And so it was just me. And I was like, you know what? Screw y'all. I'm going to go to Paris. And I went by myself. And I ate in restaurants by myself. And I got a train ticket by myself. And I had a grand old time by myself. And I went to every museum I wanted to go to. And I spent as much time as I wanted to spend. And from then on, it was like, you know, I want to eat that restaurant. And people would be like, then I would go back to the restaurant by myself and eat at that restaurant because I wanted to eat there. Or, you know, I don't like to wait for other people to give me the okay to do things. Like, I'll go to movies by myself.
That's the one thing I haven't been that's the threshold right there. What you just mentioned. That is the one thing that I have never been comfortable doing. I don't mind going out to eat by myself. I don't mind solo gaming. I don't mind going places by myself. The movie theater, for some reason, even though we're sitting there in silence,
right?
That's the one thing that I haven't been able to cross over.
See, I actually,
but I like that.
It's very therapeutic. It's very nice to go to a movie and just be in the dark and focus and not feel like you have to be taking into consideration anybody else's experience. And then you come out and you feel very refreshed.
That's seriously, and Cole kind of says what I'm thinking here. Mad respect. I wish I was okay with my own thoughts enough to do all those things alone. I think this is amazing. I mean, going on a trip anywhere, especially as a woman, I imagine, has got to be.
Yeah, I have traveled in Egypt by myself. That was probably peak stressful.
I mean, you have to make your own decisions, right? About as far as safety and the whole 9 yards. But taking that equation out of it, just being willing to just be like, you know what? I want to do this, and I don't want to be 70, 80 years old and wonder what if. I don't know if I'm going to get this opportunity again. You know what? Right. To hell with it. I'm in. I'm going. Yeah, I'm in. I think that is so commendable. And I think that is, I mean, that's the way I feel like you should live your life in general. Just don't pass up these opportunities and wait for permission from other people. I love that. Good on you, Liz. That's awesome. Seriously. That is really, yeah, that is awesome. Okay. So here, I'm willing if you are, but I won't do this alone.
Okay. All right.
Kabuki Kid says willing
she's
to
trying to get me in trouble. I already saw this.
Willing to be brutally honest. What's your single all-time worst solo gaming experience? If you're willing, I'll go first.
I'll go. It's fine.
Okay, mine is on Mars.
It's out there for the world to see.
Yep, mine was on Mars. I love Vital Lacerda. He and I are friends. We are legitimate friends. And that is the hardest game for me to solo that I have experienced so far. Now, I would argue that the bots in a coin game, I haven't quite figured out how to work those. So I'll play both, I'll play the other sides as an individual person. So I don't know how to do the bots.
I'm actually planning to make that series. So I will.
There you go, people. Check that out. But for me, it was on Mars, and I have never felt more frustrated that I feel like it was just so easy for me to miss things. Whereas the Gallerist, another one of his games, I love the bot. I love the solo in that. But for me, on Mars was just, I was so frustrated. I was embarrassed. It was all of those things, and it just made for a really uncomfortable experience for me.
Yeah.
So that's mine.
So familiar to me as a teacher. You can't let people feel uncomfortable or embarrassed, or they will immediately not like the thing they're doing. So for me, it's a more of a, so I'll review anything. I sort of feel like as a reviewer, if you send me a review copy, well, that's how it's going to go. Even if I requested it. So there's this game. It's a gladiator game, a deck building gladiator game called Carthage. So I played it multiplayer. I think it's got issues multiplayer, but they made an app that is supposed to be solo play. And you know Jason Perez from every night's game night.
Yes.
So I played the app and I was like, and he tried the app. We got on Skype together and tried to make a playable experience out of that, and it was just no. And I wrote this also as a Latin person. It made me crazy because it was called like Esidari e Maximo, which like the Latin is bad. It was like, it's supposed to be like the big charioteer, but it was like of the charioteer to the biggest. And I was like, what is this?
See, I feel like they got off on the wrong foot to begin with you. And yeah.
The app was a tack on. It didn't work well. And I was angry that they sold it as a one to whatever player game. Like, if you're going to put a solo mode on your game, make it a good solo mode, please.
I agree. Let me ask you. On that note, let me ask you then, do you feel that, I don't want to say the word every, but do you feel the majority of games should have a solo mode or no?
No, I don't think the majority of games should have a solo mode. I don't think that, so I think this might be something that a lot of people disagree with, because if you look at a Kickstarter, right, if it doesn't have a solo mode, one of the most common asked questions in the comments is it going to have a solo mode?
Is it gonna? Yep, right.
Well, that's because there's a lot of solo players and we like to game. But if you don't have something good, don't do it. I really don't think it's worth, like, you know, the world is full of so many games. Solo gaming is richer and more glorious as an experience than has ever been in the entire history of gaming, ever, that I can possibly imagine. So don't put a mediocre game into the system and ask people to spend their money on it when they could buy something amazing. Like,
I preach. Please continue. Yes. That's like, here's an example, and let's use Democker as an example. To me, Democker is a 5-player game. Can it play less? I suppose. It's a 5-player game. I want to play a game at its best. I want to see a game at its best. I don't want a game that can play this player count, whether that's solo, 2, 3, whatever. It should play.
It's very Jurassic Park, right? Like, just because you spend too much time wondering if you can, to think about whether you should.
Exactly. No, that's exactly it. Like, there are enough games out there at this point to where not every game should cater to every player count. It just shouldn't. And you know what? That's not an indictment on the designers, the publishers, developers, or the gamers. It's just understand that, look, this game plays best at this player count. Okay, then you know what? If that doesn't fit my needs, then I don't need that game. It's okay. It's all right. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I think us as gamers need to learn to appreciate and need to learn to understand is not every game should accommodate every player count. Just be understanding of that, because having a more focused design, I think, makes for a stronger game at its ideal player counts. Why isn't that a good thing, right?
Yeah, I'm really more about, I don't really want like a lukewarm leftover version of a game. Like, I want the peak experience. And so if I can't have that, I kind of don't want it. Like, although I will tell you, like, this drives my boyfriend crazy. I'm one of those people, if I go to a restaurant because I want something and they don't have it, I'm like, yeah, I don't want anything. Like, I'm that person.
Oh, damn. Okay, that might be a bit far. I mean...
Like, well, I mean, if it's like I have a craving, like, I really want to go to, even if it's just something stupid, like, you know, I really want to go to Chipotle. I want crispy tacos. They don't have any crispy taco shells. I'm like, nah, I'll go somewhere else down the street.
Okay, I can't, you know what? I can't fault you for that. Twice. Recently, I have had a hankering for fried chicken. Okay? So I went to KFC because fried chicken, right? Makes sense. Twice in the last 2 weeks, I went there. And they're like, yeah, we only have popcorn chicken. I'm like, y'all don't close for like a couple hours, right? And he's like, nah. Okay, I come back. Next time, they only have like chicken tenders. And I was like, on the one hand, I'm not going to be that guy that bitches about us having a shortage of something during the end of the world that we're going through right now. So I'm like, but really? Like, that's like going to Mickey D's and saying they're out of burgers. Like,
yeah.
You know, so I get that to a point.
Yeah, I'm not thinking about it. It's just like, oh, if I can have what I want, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll just kind of go look for what I actually wanted. It's not like a Karen situation. It's just more like...
Right. Yeah. All right.
I will let something go before I, like, settle for something. You know, I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to eat out. Like, I want what I really wanted.
I look, okay, Cole and Scott, I understand that's not ideal fried chicken. I'm in Boston, people, and at 9 at night, it is what it is.
Bojangles, yes, Bojangles chicken is excellent.
Okay, yeah, well, yes, I'm in Boston, people. Work with me, okay? A little, huh? And I'm on the north side of Boston at that, so work with me a little. I'm just saying. At 9 at night, beggars can't be choosers. So, okay.
That's true.
That's all I'm saying.
And also, if I'm not in the mood for anything specific, then I'm, like, super easygoing about it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll try anything, but, you know.
Yes. So, I appreciate that. All right. So, Atlanta, let's see. I'm trying to think. Jess and I just watched a a show called Chef's Table on Netflix. It's a series about various chefs from around the world and their just their history as well as their food and everything. There's a restaurant there. No, I lied. It's not Atlanta. Terrible story. It's Savannah. I'm sorry. Never mind. Moving on.
Oh, Savannah's such a pretty town, though.
It
I would
is.
love to spend more time there. What a gorgeous place to be.
It really is pretty. When I was stationed, like I said, in Beaufort, South Carolina, it's 30, 45 minutes at most. And we would go down there. And at that age, I mean, I was early 20s when I was there, late teens, early 20s. So we were there more for the nightlife and everything at Savannah. But if I could go back and look at and tell younger me, hey, appreciate, the just the architecture and just how beautiful everything is down there. Appreciate that more. But yeah, I want to go back. I want to take Jess, show her where I was stationed, and then as an adult now, go back down there and really investigate. But there is some really good food down in the South that I miss. Absolutely, like shrimp and grits and yeah.
See, for me, all that is Tex-Mex, though. I was born in San Antonio, and that's where I grew up. So, breakfast tacos and just endless permutations of Americanized Mexican food. Oh,
see,
it's so good. It's so good.
On my bucket list. Okay, so I know you said Americanized, but to me, the perfect food in the world are tacos.
Yes, if I could only eat one thing for the rest of my life, it'd probably be tacos.
Agreed. All right. By the way, on that note, I happen to know, when's your birthday? You're a fellow Gemini.
I am. Yeah, my birthday is June 8th.
So is mine.
Really? We have the same birthday?
We have the exact same birthday. I got you by quite a number of years. We don't need to go into details on that. But yeah, I saw that and I was like, all right, fellow Gemini, that's awesome. Nice. So tacos. So on my bucket list recently, and by recently, I mean within the last year, I've wanted to go to Mexico City to go just to spend a 4-day weekend to eat tacos.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
honestly, every time I go back to San Antonio to visit my parents, I just pack on extra weight. It's like my Christmas fluff. It's like
just putting on your winter coat. That's all. That's all.
Fine. I've never missed a meal in my life, but I definitely don't miss any in Texas. And my dad and I are so bad. But we've always been bad. My dad is awesome. So he and I we're both the early birds in the family too. So we would, when I was learning to drive, we would just go drive around San Antonio and we'd go off there's Shipley's Donuts, if y'all are Texans. I believe are the superior donut of the world. Their glazed donuts are so good.
Better than Krispy Kreme, right?
Oh, God. Krispy Kreme is disgusting.
Ooh.
Why would I eat that?
Wow. All right.
I don't need those Stepford donuts. I want donuts that somebody actually baked for me, in a store. That are...
No Stepford donuts. She said, wow, this is awesome. All right. So the big thing up here is bagels. We got a local bagel joint that, at least before the end of the world happened, they not only sell out, but no matter what time you go there, the line is of cars. It's a drive-through bagel joint, and it's around the corner every time, and some pretty incredible bagels. But Shipley's Donuts, noted. Okay.
Oh yeah. So my dad and I, we've cut back, but in my younger days, we would occasionally go at like 4 in the morning. They're hot. They're perfect at that time of day. So we'd be really bad and split a dozen donuts. So one morning we went out and we went wild, and we came back and my mom had been doing Weight Watchers or something, and she was like, let's go to the movies later. I'm gonna have popcorn. I'm gonna be bad. And my dad was like, Rhonda, how dare you? And she was like, well, what have you eaten today? And he was like, a banana. So
does she know the truth yet? Has she ever been told?
She knew. She totally knew.
All right. Okay. All right. That's awesome. That's good stuff. Yeah. But yeah, getting back to tacos, when I lived in Colorado, we had amazing Mexican food. We had a very strong Mexican community in Denver, and that is not at all the case here in Boston. So I traded quality Mexican food for Chinatown. And
that's a decent trade, depending on...
It is. And when everything's in Chinese first and English second, always a good sign. And we haven't gone back since. I mean, it's been since last year, honestly, since we've been to Chinatown, and it's killing me. I would love, whether it's hot pot, whether it's whatever, and amazing. Not like American Chinese, but Chinese, and it's fantastic. But man,
So,
I miss Al Pastor tacos.
So you've been to Atlanta. One of the great blessings where I specifically live is I live very close to Buford Highway, which is where all of the really good Asian restaurants are around here.
Nice.
It's so good. There's like a Malaysian place that's like 10 minutes from here. There's like a little mini Chinatown with a very good dim sum place that's like 10 minutes from here. If I had to buy a house, that would be convincing for me.
Woman after my heart. Yes, food dictates. I agree. Like there was a pho restaurant in Brighton, Colorado, which is kind of northeast Denver-ish, and it's out in BFE, okay, and like farmland. Like you go to Ace True Value hardware store, and they sell chicks, like baby chicks. They have little warmers and like you're out in the sticks out here, out in farmland. Has one of the best pho restaurants I've ever been to in my life out there, and that's a meal that I just have no interest in ever trying to cook at home, for the simple fact that the ingredients alone would cost you an arm and a leg when you can go get a huge bowl of pho for like $8, and it's phenomenal. And grandmother's recipe that's been perfected over the course of 60 years. Yeah, I'll defer to you. That's fine. I love to cook, but yeah. So, all right. So getting back to games. No, this is awesome. This is what tonight's about. This is what this is about. So you said Omni Gamer, but like, gun to your head, like, what are some of your really, truly favorite games, solitaire or otherwise? Like, what would some of them be?
I'm on record as being a huge Mage Knighter. It's the best for a reason. I absolutely love it.
I gotta play it. I've yet to play it.
Shame.
I know.
I need the bell. The shame bell from No, it's wonderful, and when you're ready to play it and spend the time, you will be delighted.
Good.
I like chip theory games a lot, so I adore Hoplomachus, and I've been playing a bunch of Too Many Bones recently. I did not, it's weird, I avoided playing that for the longest time. I started and I was like, oh. So that was a good experience.
Nice.
But I love historical games. So, one of my favorite little I want to play something short but thinky is I really love Wars of Marcus Aurelius. I can't wait for Stilicho to come out.
It's funny you mentioned the Wars of Marcus Aurelius. It's in here somewhere. My buddy Andrew dropped off his copy when he picked up his other games last week, and I'm going to be streaming that one in the next couple of weeks. So, yeah.
Love it, especially because you're a Roman history nut. So make sure you actually read the rulebook, because there's a couple little Easter eggs in there that are really funny.
Okay.
And some of the cards, so the cards don't explain everything, but they have people like Alexander of Abonotakis on there, and like Faustina, and like it's just like these little references to just weird crap that happened in Marcus Aurelius' life, and it's just really great.
That's awesome. Yes, and Hollandspiel's amazing when it comes to that stuff. They really, they're good stuff.
Oh yeah, and I play a lot of David Thompson. David is here. Hi, David.
Yep.
I see Glenn from Board Games and Bourbon as well. Got awesome people in the chat tonight. So, I play a lot of those. I like a lot of those lighter, faster war games for when I don't have a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I want to play something that's like much thinkier, so I haven't played it yet, but I'm really excited about Time of Crisis. I have it. I'm like looking at it, like kind of biding my time.
I've played it, and I've played it with the expansion, but I've only played it with 3 and 4 players and thoroughly enjoyed it with that. Have yet to play it solo. I know it does play solo.
Yeah,
but
see.
Definitely enjoy the game multiplayer, at least, for sure.
And while I can't get to the table a lot because it's just a lot, I really appreciated Pendragon this year. That was really a delight for me because Morgan's attention to history is just so intense. It was just so delightful to play a game and be able to feel somebody else's love for the era through it.
That's awesome, and that is another I've yet to get to. So, but all in due time.
Yeah, I mean, I have a huge to play pile. People always, have you played this? Have you played that? No.
Well, I mean, I haven't played. I've never played Katan, and at this point, I wear it kind of like it's going to be a patron reward type thing, like if I ever
Yeah.
play it type thing. But yeah, for me, I think Nemo's War has got to be up there for
That's
solo.
a great game. That's a great game.
It really is.
What a good game.
Yes.
I need to put the time in to like really do like the full review and playthrough treatment of that because it's just so good.
It really is. And another, just for the historical narrative that it gives, or not historical, but the narrative, just the experience and the story that it tells, The Hunters, I've really enjoyed. I am terrible at it, and I am horribly unlucky. And I do love that game. And if you ever do play it, I highly recommend printing out the fancy sub-map that they have on BGG.
I have Silent Victory. I just haven't played it yet. It's like sitting in my game room.
Yeah, The Hunters is a blast. It's really, really good. So let's see. Have I tried Molcajete? I don't know if I have. What is that, John? Navaneeth says, I would love to have some cocktails right now, but our AC is out and it's 90 inside the house. Oh
no.
I've had that happen. That was me a couple of years ago. I don't envy that. Any old war games you still enjoy? Stuff from the 70s or older 80s? I've never played Ambush, but I really want to. I have the expansion. I thought I at some point I did have the base game. I'm worried that I sold it a number of years ago, but that's one that I want to play. How about you?
I haven't really explored deeply into that, but I did recently pick up a copy of B-17 Queen of the Skies.
Nice. I have heard so many good things about that.
So I might be doing, I don't think Tom wants to review that on Dice Tower probably because it's like not really in print, but I'll be doing something for myself with that.
Good. Yeah. And okay, hold up. On that note, how does that work? Like, obviously, that's how you had mentioned how you kind of got wrong word. How you got started with Dice Tower is with Sam Healy's tweet out there, right?
Yeah, so I emailed Sam. Sam's always been super supportive of me, super nice. Like, that's how I started making videos. And then, I did Dice Tower stuff for a while just because, you make friends with people on the network. Like, everybody at Dice Tower is super nice. And, I actually did not know Tom that well until really recently because it's such a big network and he's a busy man. So, about a year ago, they folded Throw Punch Lunch into Board Game Breakfast. And, I was still doing segments for it, but I wasn't feeling very, inspired. But I did want to keep doing something for Dice Tower. And I was like, you know what? All my reviews are written reviews. I've never really made a video one, but I feel like the way I do it, fits this okay. At the time, Mike Delisio had not been hired full-time. And so Tom did not have any solo reviewers really at all. And I was like, you know what? There's a market for this, I think. Let me see if I can convince Tom. So I emailed Tom and I was like, hey, do you want a solo reviewer? I would be willing to do it. And so he was like, send me a sample. So I did, and then he basically hired me to do reviews.
Nice. Awesome. All right. So how do you differentiate then between what is Dice Tower and what is strictly Beyond Solitaire? How do you...
Actually, Tom and I wrote a little contract when I started. So he gets board game review videos, and that's it. Everything else is me. So all my playthroughs belong to me, and, all my written reviews are me. And I've kind of kept a hybrid. I do things for the Dice Tower, and I really love being part of, the Dice Tower fam. But I also like to have my own kind of independent outlet where I do what I want. And so, as you might have noticed, I do what I want as a theme. So I have to have a place.
Hey, don't change that. You be you. That's important. I mean...
So I've been doing jigsaw puzzle reviews. I just started doing.
I have seen those, and I am a fan, by the way, because I love puzzles, even if I don't necessarily make enough time to do them. I currently have one downstairs. Jess and I have it set up on one of the tables downstairs since we don't have people over for gaming, and I think that's awesome. Please continue.
They're great for my mental health. I have anxiety, so for me, but I'm also, my brain is so fast, it just goes all the time. I'm very rarely still. I'm just not. I'm an I'll sleep when I'm dead person, and so, I need to stop. and like slow down. And I really like puzzles because they have kind of that same tactile, like you're doing something element of board games, but they're not stressful because if you plug in a puzzle long enough, you will finish it. It's just a matter of how patient you are versus how hard the puzzle is, you know? And there's no rules, so you don't have to remember anything. So you can just sit there and do, you know, and just kind of relax. And I really like that. I feel like it's gaming adjacent. It's like the low end of complexity, and then you can like ratchet it all the way up to something when you have the energy.
I like that rationale too. So, what are some of your favorites? Do you prefer high piece count, low piece count, certain themes on the puzzles? What?
So I like 1,000-piece puzzles typically. 500 if I want to do something fast, but if I do like a 500-piece puzzle, it'll be done in an afternoon or an evening, like just. I am actually going to do a review soon of an art and fable puzzle set that I did, but actually, so I mentioned Elagabalus earlier. So Island is Elagabalus. Most people say Elagabalus. We'll go with Elagabalus. But there's this really great painting called The Roses of Heliogabalus, which is like a Victorian era painting, I think. But it's so he was famous for having these like really wild parties. And at one point he apparently dropped so many flower petals on his guests that some of them suffocated. And so there's this beautiful painting that's like of all these rose petals. It says violets in the Historia so who cares? Falling on these people, and like they all look beautiful and desperate. And like, you know, Elagabalus and his like party are like up at the front table kind of watching the roses fall. And they made a puzzle out of it. There's a brand called Art and Fable that just started releasing 1,000-piece puzzles. And it was just like beautiful, weird experience to put it together. And I enjoyed it. I don't know if like I should have, but I did. So there it is.
Well, hold on. Why do you say you don't think you should have? Why?
Because you're putting together a picture of people who are slowly suffocating to death and dying.
So?
And like they have these weirdly placid expressions on their faces. You know, it's like, you know. But I got great pleasure out of paying a lot of attention to the details and thinking about like putting it together and like,
how do you, okay?
Like,
do you obviously, I imagine, have a system when you put together a puzzle. So what's your system?
It actually depends on the puzzle. So if it is one that has a lot of discrete areas, I always try to build the edge first, but some puzzles won't let you do that because they have false edges and stuff in them, depending on what you find. So I also sort, like I have these sorting trays, so I'll sort them by color. Usually if there's like an obvious part of the puzzle, I'll just dump all the blue pieces in one and all the red pieces in the other one. If it doesn't work like that, so I'll typically do as much of the puzzle as I can that way. But this particular puzzle actually was interesting because so much of it is just cascading rose petals that I had to sort by shape.
Wow. Okay.
And just kind of be like, okay, I know it has to be this shape. Does this look about right? And kind of test until I found the right one.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. All right.
So,
all right.
Gotta just figure out like what is the strategy, and eventually you always. I mean, again, the joy of puzzles. If you are patient enough, you will always solve the puzzle. Even if you have to brute force.
That is true.
They're comforting. They're low stress because you know, like.
And see, for me, it brings back memories of doing stuff with my mom, and both my parents have long since passed, and so there's that kind of feeling of home, like. You know, a lot of us grew up playing board games with our families or whatever, and you know, old school, you know, Risk, Monopoly, Life, all that thing. And so yeah, that kind of, for me, it's a way to kind of turn off my brain as well, and also reconnect with a little bit of my childhood as well, I think. And that's the appeal. And if I can get train theme ones, even better, because trains. Speaking of which, I don't see any train stuff whenever I was going through your...
Never gone there. It's not that I wouldn't, I just haven't.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right. So,
waiting for the urge to strike.
Do what?
I'm waiting for that urge to strike. It just hasn't yet.
Well, if you ever need a nudge, let me know. Let's see. Speaking of solo games, when is SOS Titanic getting a reprint? I've never played it. Have you?
I have not. It's one of those ones that everybody talks about as being one of the greats, but I've just never played it. I've never had a copy that kind of was the right price or the right moment.
Okay.
Because it is out of print. So I just have not, yeah.
All right. And any games that have a solo mode that you prefer to play two-player instead? For me, so far, Colonial Twilight, because the bot, I just can't quite make heads or tails of it yet. So that would be the one that comes to mind for me. How about you?
I actually like to play a lot of things two-handed. So, too many buttons. You could play with one gear lock. I like two. Eon's End, you can play it with one mage. I like two. I just actually really like to two-hand. I enjoy card interactions a lot.
Okay.
Or interactions of powers. So having access to a little bit more in my tool set when I'm playing is more exciting for me. So typically, if I can two-hand something that's cooperative, I will generally prefer to do that.
That's cooperative, but not if it's competitive, right? Because I was going to say there's got to be a disconnect, right? To where
I dislike playing against myself. So
okay,
David's in here, he knows this. So the only two-player game I've ever reviewed was Undaunted Normandy.
Okay.
Because a lot of people were playing it solo, so I requested it, and I was like, I hate playing against myself. I don't like to make the best move against myself. But this game deserves way better than me just saying that. So I found somebody to play with, and I played it. And I had an awesome time. It was great. But
why? So why is that? Why don't you like playing competitively against yourself?
Oh, I guess I just sort of feel like knowing my own moves. It's like, how much can I really challenge myself? It just feels like it's not a real challenge. I like the mystery of knowing what somebody else is doing. And also, if you have a favorite side or a favorite character, how do you know you're not accidentally privileging that side?
Sure.
If I was playing Undaunted Normandy against myself, I would always want the United States to win. So heck. I mean, if we're being real.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Do you have a favorite Roman emperor or a favorite classical figure you wish more people knew about?
Ooh, my favorite emperor. Who's my favorite emperor? I have a lot that I really like. Claudius is my favorite show about an emperor, so I have a real soft spot for Claudius. But actually, my favorite character does not get a good play in that. I love Agrippina the Younger, Nero's mom. She was an amazing woman. She does not get a lot of credit because people think that she murdered her husband, which maybe she murdered too. But she lived this really rough life. Most of members of her family were murdered by other members of her family.
Again, as was typical for politics back then.
Yeah, she was a tough woman, and she also had more power than any woman in history had ever had to that point. Her marriage to Claudius actually was not all bad all the way through. Even though it was gross, and she was his niece and he was her uncle, which is foul. He killed fewer senators when she was married to him than before they had gotten married. She stabilized him, and Cologne, the city of Cologne, that's originally Colonia Agrippinensis. She founded a colony. And it was one of the most successful Roman colonies ever founded because she actually had good ideas for how that stuff should go. And, she's probably the reason that her son, Nero, had a decent start to his reign. She chose his tutor, and then everything just started to go wrong. But, even to the last moment of her life, she was a fighter, And I like that about her a lot. I think that she gets painted as evil, but I think she was just strong.
That's really cool. I'll be honest, I didn't know that much about her, and so
Actually, she's the only Roman woman I know of who wrote her own memoirs. We don't have them, but it's pretty clear that a lot of men at that time thought they were too cool to read a woman's memoirs, but totally read them. And what's interesting is she calls them commentarii, which is the same title that Julius Caesar gives to his commentaries on wars. And she describes giving birth to her son in there, and it's a really bold choice. So we don't have access to the text. We only know things about it that other people have said.
Okay.
But all the little glimmers of her that I ever see are just so cool. I wish that I could know more about her.
So is that sounds like somebody, if you could have dinner with somebody, go back in history type thing, and provided
as long
you
as
could
there's no mushrooms on the table.
Say again?
As long as there's no mushrooms on the table, because that's what she apparently fed to Claudius to poison him.
Noted. So let's see here. Navani says, I've been telling myself for 2 years I'll start playing solo. Maybe it's time to start during the pandemic. Thinking of setting up on Mars solo soon. Not the one I would start with, Navani. I'm just saying, not the one I would start with. Yeah. Let's see, what else? Kabuki Kid says, all too often, solo game or solo modes in games are afterthoughts. I think that's changing, though. I mean, there are people like David Turtzi out there that are really hardcore into the solo modes, whether it's in games he's specifically designed or he has gone and done solo modes for other games. And I think I think the solo player is getting a lot more common and a lot more, I don't want to say respected, but like not as an oversight, not as a afterthought type gamer. That part of the market, I would say, you know?
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I do think that sometimes people, I think solo modes are just more prominent for this, but I think there's a lot of games that have player counts that aren't ideal. Like we talked about this earlier, some games are really just 5-player games, even if they play less.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with solo mode now in play, I think that it's possible to have solo modes that are weaker or that are tacked on, especially if not enough thought goes into them, but you felt like you needed to make one. But I also think that this is an era where really fantastic solo modes and solo games are coming out. And so, you know, think about the music on the radio, right? In 20 years, only the best stuff is still going to be around. But a whole bunch of stuff was out. So I feel like our current gaming climate will be like that. Like, we'll find out what the best games really were in 15 years.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. Like, everybody does their Game of the Year stuff, right? But
yeah,
that's one of the things that goes into, for us, for the Golden Elephant Award is this game going to matter in 5 or 10 years? Is it still going to have legs in 5 or 10 years? And if the answer is no, then I don't know that it necessarily should be an award winner in that regard, but not to go too far down that path.
See, that's actually what I like so much about historical games, is that I think what I like about them is that in some ways they matter to me beyond the gameplay, because I'm interested in what games have to say about history and how they choose to model historical events. Actually, I don't know, most people don't know this because I don't know if we listen to it, but I have a podcast. It's called Beyond Solitaire, very creatively. And I interview mostly historical game people, war game people, about what went into their games. So actually, David Thompson and I, my second episode was with David, we talked about how he's using GIS mapping to map out the Battle of Mortain.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
My first interview is actually with like a classicist who studied ancient games, so I just had him like talk about that. I've got an episode coming up that's about Kriegspiel, because I met a professor of who studies rare books, but also Kriegspiel, and so I had him on and we talked about Kriegspiel and its impact on gaming and how you could build your own sets. You know, I like having all those kind of weirder conversations about like historical stuff, or what thought was going into your game, or, you know, what were you trying to say about this era of history? Were you trying to say anything? I got a good conversation with Tom Russell about games as art coming up.
That Tom is a one of a kind, and I mean that as a compliment. The way he thinks about things is different than just about anybody else out there. So, well, there you go. Go listen to that, people. All right, Beyond Solitaire podcast as well as a YouTube channel. Let's see, a couple more things. Let's see, there was Superboard Sunday says, I blame Liz for my board game collection. I love solo games and just started a campaign of Imperial Settlers based on her recommendation. We all have crosses we must bear, Liz. Apparently that is yours.
Yes, I'm sorry to everyone's wallets. But I'm not sorry for their free time.
Right, but see, no, the way I see it is I get blamed for that stuff a lot as well. And here's the way I approach it is I'm not sorry at all for that, because I'm directing people towards high quality games that they will enjoy. So you're welcome. Like I'm saving you money from not spending money on games that you wouldn't enjoy. See?
Yeah,
see what
I do agree with that.
Right.
I do agree with that. Also, my reviews, I try to keep them very honest. So if I don't like something, I will say so. I don't do it in a mean way. Actually, you can tell I'm a teacher, because if you look at my negative reviews, you can see me like, wow, this is the potential I saw in the game, and here's what I thought was a good idea. But
I see there. Okay, so here's a bone. Something I need to get off my chest. That I feel like us as reviewers, especially as a channel or a personality or whatever gets bigger and has a louder voice or a bigger platform from which to be able to speak from, I find it more and more important to choose your words carefully when having a negative review. I do negative reviews. I have no qualms with calling a spade when it comes to those things. However, this part I will try and self-edit in case those of you have kids around right now, but I feel very strongly about this. I can say that I think this game is a piece of crap, or that this is a really bad aspect of the design, without attacking the designer and without attacking the design. Like, this is somebody's baby. You can do so and be respectful, but still convey that point without using specific language that is going to trigger a certain reaction. And I think us as reviewers have a responsibility, especially more as we get bigger or the show, whatever. I think it's important to be very careful on the language that you choose when you're talking about somebody's creation, because it might not be good, but you can still find positive aspects of that to be able to highlight, hey, it has really good art. The rule book's laid out well, or the graphic design was done well, or these mechanisms within it were very good. However, you also can balance that and still rip it to shreds, but do so respectfully. And that is something that I don't think everybody out there who does this agrees that they have that responsibility. And that's really a shame, because I can still convey that, look, this is a piece of shit, without saying, look, this is a piece of shit, basically.
Well, the other thing is that, like, saying that is not necessarily useful. It might be cathartic, but it doesn't actually communicate what's wrong.
Right.
I mean, just saying it's bad, I don't like it, doesn't actually help people make a decision about whether they would think it was bad. Like, if you can't express why you think something is bad, then you didn't do enough work to review it. And, you know, the other thing is that, I mean, this isn't my day job, but I do consider what I do to be professional. And I do think that it is important to treat the games in a professional way. I don't think that it is appropriate to, you know, I mean, I think it's going to be honest, and, you know, you have to, because, I mean, both my parents are journalists, so my instinct is always going to be, like, go for it, you know? But, you know, you owe it to yourself as a media person, and you owe it to the designer as somebody who sent you their game, and you owe it to the game as something that is in, even if you didn't like that one, you like games, to do right by it. Even if that means being negative, like, you should still, I don't know if kind is the word, because nothing ever feels kind, right, about putting out a negative review. But, like, I think it's important to be respectful and constructively negative.
Yes, I agree. You can be negative and be respectful and do both. And I remember we did a review of La Granja from Andreas O'Donnell and Michael Keller a number of years ago. And I took, or it was the other one. It was Deluvia Project. No, wrong one. It doesn't matter. One of Andreas O'Donnell's games. And he disagreed with my negative take on it. However, he wrote me this super long email. And no, it wasn't a bad thing. And he explained to me why the design was the way it was and the thought process behind it. And even though we had a difference of opinion, he still respected the way we approached it. And I was like, you know what? If we can have that level of discourse, like, look, you and I might differ on the way we think that this should have been done, or that it could have, or whether it was successful in presenting whatever it was trying to present. And we can still respect one another and have a difference of opinion, then the way I see it is mission accomplished, right? On both sides. So yeah.
Although that said, reading a good fiery roast of something is always cathartic. So one of my favorite reviews ever written, and it's just so mean, is that, remember that New York Times review of Guy Fieri's restaurant in Times Square? Yeah. The one that later closed down. It was the meanest review I've ever read in my life. I laughed so hard. And then I still remember that review, but I'll never write a review like that. It's just not really, like, in character for me. It doesn't work with my personality and, like, the kind of thing that I would write.
Yep. I cannot understand just wanting to rip another human to shreds like that. regardless of who you're talking about. I mean, whether it's a Brad Pitt or a nobody, they're still people. You know what I mean? It's still a person behind whatever creative thing that they chose to create. And so, yeah, I totally agree with you on that. So Das Breschwart asked, do you prefer solo mode with components from a box or solo mode through a digital AI? That's a no-brainer for me, but please.
Box. Components from a box.
Yes,
so
100%.
There's two reasons I don't love digital AI. One is I do have all the same fears as everybody else that won't be supported forever. And so it makes me feel anxious. But the other thing is, honestly, I prefer to get my devices away from me, except to take a quick picture for Instagram when I'm gaming. Yep. Because if I have notifications showing up on my phone constantly or something while I'm playing, I will get distracted from the game. And so that takes away from my gaming experience. I don't like being forced to use a device that the world tries to rush in through while I'm playing.
I feel 100% the exact same, for the exact same two reasons. One, we play board games to get away from technology. Now, it's funny, you and I say this when we both, I live stream, and I have, right, and here we are. But I think the sentiment still comes through as far as what it is we're trying to do. But also, I just don't want I don't like having to use my device, my phone. I just don't want to. It's like Tabletopia or Tabletop Simulator. Look, those that like it. Hey, I am all for that. Please continue to do so. But it's a stopgap, especially nowadays with right now for those that want the multiplayer experience. But there is nothing that comes close comparing a tabletop simulator and a physical game on the table. It just doesn't give me anywhere near the same engagement. And it just doesn't hold me the way that a physical game does on the table. How about you?
Yeah, and the other thing is, to be honest, I would be, first of all, I love like the tactile aspects of games. Mm-hmm. I enjoy kind of surveying. Like I actually feel like when I'm looking at something, so I've not tried Tabletop Simulator. I probably will at some point just for professional reasons, right? Because I want to play a game, or I want to play a game with somebody. But I feel like it's hard for me to get the lay of the land if I have to look at it on a screen. I struggle more to spatially understand what's happening on the board. For me, it's just a lot more. It just makes more sense, even if it's a game that I know how to play really well. Even something Splendor, it's just easier for me to read the situation if it's on the table. And the other thing is, I'm not immune to social media and notifications on my phone and text messages, and I get a lot of them. And, if I see something that I think might be something I want to see, immediately I'm distracted. And that's bad. I leave my own cell phone in my desk locked when I'm teaching kids because I try to model that for them. It's almost impossible to get kids to keep their phones away unless you physically take them, and I won't. So that's a totally different life.
Oh yeah, that's gotta be hard as a teacher. I cannot imagine what that is nowadays.
Because
so
you could be the most charming person in the entire world, and you cannot compete with the phone. You just can't. And so that's hard. But I put mine away because I feel like if I don't, I will get distracted. It just will happen. And then the people around me, if I'm playing with someone, feel disrespected.
Yep.
And if I'm by myself, I'm not respecting my own time for me. And so I just don't do it. The other thing is, actually, this is maybe other people feel the same way. I don't like to use my device as the communal device ever because I get notifications and I have, it's like, I feel like my phone is my personal space. And I don't like to make it exposed to everyone. I don't like it when people walk behind me when I'm on the computer. Like, I'm never doing anything bad. Like, I just, read
Hey, you don't have to justify to us. It's okay, Liz.
Yeah, no, but, what are you going to see? Like, the last browser windows I had open were, a thing about the school board, a YouTube video, and, Facebook. Oh, no.
Right. You're right. I hear you.
It's just a thing. I don't know. And, with my students, I used to have a phone lock when I had a smaller classroom. It's one of those screens that, you couldn't see. And I like that now it has to recognize my face to show stuff. Because even if it's something like my boyfriend sends me a text that says, I love you, you don't need your students to see that. No.
I mean, I guess, see, I don't mind that. I mean, it all comes down to your own personal, comfort with that, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately. So I get that. And I can appreciate what you're saying about, like, if you have to have a phone for a app or whatever, for a game or whatever, I can appreciate what you're saying about not using your phone for that, just because I tend to get a lot of notifications given the platform that I have and everything. So yeah, and I as much as I try, it can be like squirrel,
Yep.
yes. So yeah, and I try really hard to not be disrespectful to anybody else that's at the table. I think that's really important. So yes, I agree with that. There was something else that was really, really good. Let me see. What's your preference on either a solo bot or beat your own score solo modes? I have a strong opinion on this one.
So I will play a beat your own score game if the puzzle is interesting enough.
Yep.
But I really prefer to have some sort of opponent. So a game that really got elevated for me, let's go light, is something like Welcome to. Welcome to was fun, and I actually really like it without, as it just the regular solo mode where you're trying to like do a good job with your score. But the thing that really elevates it for me as a game is the Alexis solo mode, because then the bot scores against you, and you have to. Actually, what I really like the best about it is that normally you don't pay attention to your discard pile, but on Welcome to, the bot scores off of what you throw away, so it adds an extra layer of decision making to the game. So it's not only an opponent, but it's an opponent that really impacts how you make choices. Love it, love that.
I like that. Adding a layer of decision making that wasn't there already. That's only a good thing, as I see it, because ultimately, I don't want to assume, but that goes a long way as to why you and I both enjoy playing board games, is the competition of decision making.
Yeah.
So, see,
yeah.
we're here, Liz. We're here. And I agree. I absolutely prefer a solo bot in that regard. And somebody earlier had mentioned a game that I recently streamed that if you haven't played, I cannot stress this one enough, how much I enjoyed it. That's Tales of the Northlands, Sagas of Nagananag.
I have not played that.
Okay, I would definitely recommend it. It's based on a 1960s children's series from the UK that has very kitschy artwork, but it is, I mean, this is one of those things that like kids grew up watching. Like for us, it would be like Captain Kangaroo or Mr. Rogers or, Sesame Street or whatever, but it was at that level for the kids there. And it's not a kid's game. It is a really, really hard solo mode. And in fact, Ricky Royal is the one who designed the solo mode for it.
Oh, that's a definite mark in his favor. I'm very fond of Ricky's designs.
Yes.
Yeah. One thing I really appreciate about him, so I mentioned that he was somebody he's like the person who taught me to play Mage Knight. He's that for a lot of people. I've got my own Mage Knight videos out, but I don't think anybody can ever be Ricky, But
yeah, I know. Like when I play Mage Knight, I'm like, I'm gonna have to watch his stuff and then learn it, and then I gotta stream it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be. Yeah. I mean, everybody knows that, like Ricky Royal, Mage Knight, there.
But one thing I really appreciate about him is, like even from the very first, my earliest tweets and earliest things, he occasionally cropped up as somebody who was supportive of things that I was saying. He's always been really kind to me and, supportive of the work that I do and just generous with his time and his attention. And I just really appreciate him as a person. Like, Ricky Royal is as excellent as you think he is from watching his videos, and maybe better.
And I have had nothing but positive things in all of my interactions with Ricky as well. Yeah, I feel the same. Yep, good people. And I like to see good people succeed. So yeah, I'm fully endorse everything about. So I agree. Let's see, what else? Well,
no questions, just comments.
yeah. I'm just going through, seeing people asking questions. People are asking about Tekenu. I'm going to be streaming that solo next week. And Jess says, well said, Liz. Just because I don't like something doesn't mean that no one will. Opinions are not universal truths.
I mean, mine are, but no joking.
Zing! Yeah, we're gonna get along really well, Liz. I definitely.
Well, kids come and they'll be like, "How am I doing in your class, Dr. D?" And I'm like, "Oh, you have like a 12. You're feeling pretty bad." And they'll look at me like, and
Right,
they realize I'm
that
kidding.
moment of panic, like, really?
Yeah, I have every single child who has acted up in my class, which is every single one, has at some point, like, I've caught their eye and just. And the funniest part is they know that would never happen, so they just laugh, and it like resets the whole thing, and like their behavior immediately improves. Not because I threatened them, but because they thought it was funny, and like we just keep going.
See, you're everything that's right about teaching, man. That yes, this is. Yeah, you're a breath of fresh air, honestly, when it comes to just. Yeah, this is what we should support and what we should want as for teaching the kids out there.
Yeah. Well, fun fact, Latin fact. So the word ludus is both the word for school in Latin and for game. And I think that there is a lot to appreciate about that commonality. It really bothers me that school is considered something that you're supposed to just truck through and it doesn't have to be fun. It's like, well, you should be about the work and, you know, are you caught up to the standards and did you pass the test? And
right.
School should be enjoyable. Like, why would you put your child in a situation where they're spending like the majority of their lives in a place that they hate and that isn't fun? Like, what's wrong with us as a society? Like, school should be awesome.
Yeah, Kabuki kid, teaching needs more Liz's. That's exactly right. And I think that's a good way to think about it. And that's why I said this earlier, but I want to reiterate, like, it's nice to hear that, and I don't know the inner workings of how a school works as far as faculty and how closely you need to follow a regimented schedule as far as you need to. Yeah. Right, and all of that. But it sounds like you have a pretty good environment in which the powers that be give you some, I guess, leeway in that to be able to teach the class as you see fit, as long as the kids are doing what they need to do, right?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting compared to other Latin programs in the country. Mine has had to make some trade-offs to do things the way we do them. So, you know, a lot of people take a lot of pride in their students' like AP Latin scores. We don't do AP. We actually have them take a reading test that's like nationalized now to get a seal of biliteracy instead of taking the AP exam.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
So a lot of kids will take what are called AP exams, advanced placement, and they're supposed to give you college credit, and they're supposed to be college level classes. But honestly, AP Latin, I didn't take classes in grad school that was ridiculous as AP Latin. And in order to get your kids through that curriculum, they're basically reading English translations of the Latin and then trying to kind of memorize where they are in the text to be able to translate it. They have to think a lot about grammar rules. It's not fun. Like, that is not a good way to read Caesar. It's not a good way to read Virgil. Actually, the great scandal of Latin, and I'll just tell you because I'm not ashamed to say it, is that nobody just picks up ancient Latin, like very advanced level Latin, and just reads it. They say they're reading it, they're translating it. It's like puzzling out what all the grammar means, like this ending goes with that, and, you know, people do not naturally do this. And so we choose instead to give the students Latin that they can actually read, so they can have the experience of picking up a passage in Latin and being like, oh yeah, I understand that, instead of, let me get a dictionary. And so
okay.
It causes a philosophical change, because I love historical texts and ancient texts, and people are like, oh, well, I want my students to read Ovid, I want my students to read Catullus, I want them to really appreciate, you know, ancient literature. But I think that the sacrifices that you make to their happiness and comfort for that, I mean, kids who are masochistic like I was, you know, the motto of my college was "where fun comes to die," and we loved it. It's not official motto, but still. You know, there are kids who will love that, but if you want to have every kid have a good time in your class, you just can't. You can't do it. If you really want to teach every student, you have to change. And so we made the decision to teach every student for as long as we could keep them, instead of funnel them towards that really hard exam.
And I think that would probably have a longer lasting impact, as opposed to like for lack of a better way to put it, but instead of teaching for the test, you're teaching for life as opposed to.
Yeah, honestly, so I feel bad saying this because I really do value teaching Latin and I want people to know it. But for me, selfishly, what I want is for students to be sad every time a Latin program dies or classics program closes because it's happening at an alarming rate in other parts of the country. You know, Latin always struggles, especially in a world where people see education as utilitarian as opposed to something that should be pleasurable. You know, you start losing humanities to things that are like business, tech, and those are good things too. But, you know, I want people who value what they can get from something that's a little bit less obviously pragmatic and something that's a little bit more introspective and exploratory, which I think Latin can do for you. But also, I don't know, like kids don't really remember, like how much of your high school education do you really remember? Like really? You know what I mean?
Probably not as much as I think I do, but that's
But
fair.
you remember your teachers and like you remember how they made you feel. And that I think is really the more important part. Like my students should feel good about having been in my class and should have an experience in there that they remember, even if they don't remember very much Latin at all in 30 years, because they probably won't. But,
but then again, I mean, I remember I took French, I took Japanese in high school, and it's been a day.
Are you fluent?
Huh?
Are you fluent?
No, I'm not. But I will say this. Well, I only took 2 years of each. But I will say when we went to Paris, though, some of that actually helped me manage to get through there. So there is that. And I still remember hating two-column proofs in geometry. So there's that.
Yeah, but you remember the feeling. I actually think this applies to board games too. Like I think one of the reasons I have the channel that I have is that it's that instinct to want to share something with somebody else.
Yes.
So I feel like if I can make a video that helps somebody else on ramp onto a game and enjoy it, that's a good service to provide to the community, you know? And so I do it because I want to help somebody else play a game.
Yes.
Because I want them to have a good time playing a game. I think that when you teach games too, like a game is really only as good as the person who taught you. If you have a bad teaching experience with a game, that person will not want to play with you again. And I think that you don't have to be a professional teacher to have just a few skills in making something feel good for somebody else to experience so that they'll want to do it again.
I wholeheartedly agree with that because I feel like not only can you sour a person on playing with you, you can sour them on either the game or gaming in general. Yeah. And that's why we have an ongoing joke. Like if I teach a game, which is 95% of the time, I'm the one teaching the game for my game group. If I win, you know, hashtag bad teacher, right? Like my job is to make sure that not only does everybody have a good time, but that they're able to understand everything. And I hate those people that will be like, oh, I'm going to hold this one rule back so that, oh, by the way. And I'm like, why do that? Like that, winning isn't that important. Yes, we are trying to win, but I want people to have a good time. And the purpose is to lower the barrier to entry for especially a lot of these heavier games that we enjoy. And why winning's not that important. Right? It's the goal, but it's not
you should want to win enough to make the game fun, but you shouldn't want to win enough to make it not fun. Like
exactly.
It has to be the correct balance.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
You know, because if you don't want to compete at all, it's like, well, why play?
Right.
But you know, you can't care enough to like have it ruin your night if you don't win. I don't win most of the games I play with my game group.
Same. Because I game with Jess. Yeah.
And solo players just are used to taking it on the chin.
Well, my entire game group is used to taking it on the chin because Jess is in our game group and she's a shark. So yeah, she's a monster. I get it.
It's good for you.
I mean, it's entertaining, and it feels really good when I actually win. It's rare, but it feels really good. Good stuff. All right, so you got anything else?
I mean,
I can go all night, but I figure we both got to get dinner at some point, so that's all.
Yeah, I already ate, but you're a night owl.
That's right. Fair point. That's fair point. Yeah. No, this is good stuff. We should, if you ever want to be a part of the streams, you want to come on and stream a game with me and bust something out, I'd be happy to have you back on.
Yeah, I've never done it before, but that does not usually stop me. So, yeah, I'd be willing to learn how to do it.
Okay,
I figured
awesome.
you'd be patient with me, so that's fine.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, and this is, and to be honest with you, I think the visibility of having more women that like there was a tweet or on BGG or something about how it seems that there aren't enough women that play heavy games, and I think
Ah,
anything that we can do to knock down that stereotype, I'm all for, because like I said, I mean, Jess is the monster in our group. Like she wins almost every game that she plays, and women are as good, if not better, than the rest of us at these games. So why not show and knock down that stereotype? So, yeah.
yeah. You know what's really interesting about that though is I've had a very fortunate experience in the board game community. Like a lot of women will have horror stories about how they've been treated, and probably the most annoying thing that ever happened to me was one time I bought some dragon shields and like code names at the same time, and the clerk at the game store was like, you know that these sleeves don't go with this game, right? And I was like, bro, they're from my Lord of the Rings game. Like, I don't know. But, you know, I mean, occasionally I'll get something like that. But you know what? I've actually found the gaming community to be super supportive and cool about it. And, like, very few people comment on the fact that I'm a woman who plays. It's very interesting. Like, I just kind of, like, have been really lucky. And I know that not everybody has that experience, but I want more people to.
I agree. And I would like to think that everybody within our group is welcoming as well. And you know, that anything outside of that, regardless of whether it's, you know, male, female, non-binary, white, black, anything, ultimately it comes down, I mean, I joke and I'm like, look, are you an asshole? If the answer is no, then let's play a game, right? Like, that's how it should be. It shouldn't matter. The rest of it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think that the one thing that we all need to one thing I've noticed, and this was true for me too at my very first con. I think that people who are already feeling a little bit uncomfortable or unwelcome, I think the most important thing is when we're in public situations to be aware of who's around us, looking longingly at the game table, and make sure that we talk to them and like make them feel like they were seen, could get in on the next game. I think for me that's like the big next step. That's the thing I need to work on too, because like when you go to a con or whatever, right, you want to play with your friends. But I used to be the person that didn't have friends at a con, and I felt very bad. And then it changed, but, you know, somebody's got to help it change.
See, and it's funny, like Jess tells me, like, I'm the worst influence on the kids because I've never met a stranger. So we'll be sitting at a con or whatever, and we'll be playing a game or whatever, and somebody will walk up, like, not say anything, just stand there. And I'll be like, hey, how's it going? And, you know, usually they have a name tag, hey, you know, whoever. And I'll be like, you interested? I can run you through, you know, like kind of basically talk through my turn like I do on the show. And sometimes they're really, you know, they're all for that. And other times they are so taken back, like, like, wait, you noticed me. And I'm like, no, I just was trying to be welcoming, and so yeah, it's
Yeah, I'm that person too. So yeah, my boyfriend he's like, do you ever just not talk to people? You know, we'll be in the grocery line. I'll talk to somebody. You know, we're next to people on the bus. I don't know. You just lock eyes with somebody. You feel like you got to say something. Then before you're having a conversation, I don't know. And I'm actually an introvert. Like I love to be by myself, but I also do love people. And I feel like, you know, you want to talk to people, but you never know how interesting somebody's going to be. You know, we mentioned earlier, I told you I haven't shut up since, like, I learned how to talk. My first word was hi.
and for me, I didn't get started until after 2 years old, and I'm making up for lost time, so I can relate. And the amount of times, yeah, exactly, cons, the post office, the grocery store, everywhere, Jess says, the amount of times that I embarrass Jess just because she is very much that, like, won't talk to anybody and very, very introverted. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? Da 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 da. And I could talk to a fern. So yeah, I totally get that. I really do. But at the same time, the funny thing is, I mean, obviously I'm an extrovert, but I hit a threshold. There is a time where I'm just like, you know what? I'm kind of peopled out. I need some just quiet.
Yeah.
And it's hard for some people to realize that, yes, even Edward needs
Are you
time
one of those
away.
people, like, when you're done, you are just done? Like, you go, and then suddenly it's like, boom, like, I hit the wall, and now I just really need to go and recharge.
Yeah.
And if I don't get, like, sometimes I feel like when I hit the end of the night, it's like the restaurant suddenly got too loud.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
Like, yes. Exactly. And it's like, I know that I'm not going to be okay until I go home and take a nap and go read a book and just kind of be by myself.
Yeah, that's for me. And the funny thing is and one of the places I'm most social, believe it or not, is at the poker table. So I used to play poker professionally, and that is, well, not right now. But the thing that kills me is that poker rooms are open 30 minutes away from me, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
See, I'm not a good poker player. I'm not a good liar.
Oh, I don't think I'm good at bluffing, but it's all about storytelling, and that I'm very good at. And storytelling isn't necessarily about, the way you're blinking or anything. It's your betting patterns, and is the story you're telling making sense? The thing that I have trouble with sometimes is the people I'm trying to tell a story to are illiterate, and they can't read. They don't understand that I'm actually telling a story, and then I get myself in trouble. But I've never met a stranger in that regard, so I'm always the talkative one at the poker table, because that is me when I'm comfortable. That's how I am. And people that are comfortable and that are having a good time don't mind losing money nearly as much as if they're quiet. And, that's why, like, social games, craps, poker, stuff like that. If they're having a good time, people don't mind losing as much. And when
they say that you should never bet more than what you're willing to pay on entertainment for the night.
Exactly. Right. Like, so that's the way most people should go into it, looking at it, right? Like, if you're willing to drop a couple $100 or whatever for entertainment, and your entertainment is going to the casino, then the way I see it is, you were going to lose it to somebody. It might as well be to me. But that said, we can still have a good time doing it, and it's genuine, right? But yeah. So I pretty much have never met a stranger. I get that.
You'd really like my mom. So my mom is not a professional poker player, but she's a very good amateur poker player. And the thing that's so funny, so my mom looks just like me, except super glamorous. And, she's got blonde hair. She does a great job with her makeup. She's always very stylish. And she's a former reporter. And she can make you talk about things that you didn't realize you were talking about until you already told her. And so people completely underestimate her because she's like pretty and she's laughing, and then before you know it, like, boom, like she went in for the kill.
that there is an inherent advantage that she would have in general. So yeah, hey, I mean, use your gifts, whether it's a gift of conversation or whatever it is. I mean, as long as you're not being underhanded about it, and I don't want to speak about ethics or morality when it comes to poker, but in general,
if you're not cheating, I mean,
yeah, but at the same time, I still feel like there are certain things that are just be a good human. You know what I mean? We can still play against one another, and it's like when we're playing in a board game. Like, I might misdirect you over into this area or whatever, or feint over here, or do this. I'm not being, underhanded or doing something unethical. I'm playing within the spirit of the game. And as long as you do that, then, hey, you know what? If you outplayed me, kudos on you. Good job. You got me on this one. Hopefully I'll get you on the next one, whether it's in a board game, whether it's in poker, or whatever. And I think more people could learn that, I think.
Yeah. Actually, this is really funny. something about what you said, it makes me think of so bartering and haggling is like this as well. Like, you know, I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East, like working and stuff. So you go shopping at marketplaces and stuff, and you have to haggle. I'm a horrible haggler. I just, I got better. So, you know, I used to be really bad at it. I've gotten better over time. And the thing that's really funny is, like, culturally, it's supposed to be both parties leave feeling happy about how it went.
Yes.
If one person is angry at the end of the exchange, it didn't work. And one thing that was really funny is, like, this guy told me once, I bought, like, a quilt from Harris. It was like a wall hanging. And he was like, you know, Americans are the best people to haggle with because they smile when they give you their money. And he's like, some people that I haggle with are very sour, and, like, it feels really unpleasant to do business with them, even if I got a good deal. And I guess I feel like gaming is like that a little bit, too. Like, if you're in the spirit of the game. But, like, I learned how to be ridiculous. So I actually took students to Jerusalem a year ago, a little over a year ago. And these were private school kids. It was before I went back to public school. And they're so sweet. They're great children. But I had a kid just pull cash out of her pocket to buy something at a store in the Jerusalem market. And I was like, child, no, put it back. And, like, I took her to another, like, a place. I was like, okay, look, you're going to put a bill of one side in your pocket. You're going to put one bill in another pocket. You need to split it up. And, like, you know, I picked something. I was like, okay, watch. And so I put, like, the amount of money I was willing to spend on something in my pocket. And I walked up and I, like, looked at a necklace. And the guy was like, oh, do you want it? I was like, oh, it's beautiful. But, I mean, you know. And he was like, oh, it is silver from Ramallah. It's worth this. And I was like, oh, actually, I said I'm a student. And this was really funny. I was like, oh, I'm a student. I don't have any money. Like, this is all I have. And I pulled that one bill out of my pocket. And he took it and gave me the necklace. And the student was like, Dr. D, you're not a student. And I was like, kid, that's not silver from Ramallah. Like, you know, like, and so, you know, you have to be willing, but it's a game. Like, we knew we were playing and everybody left happy. He probably still got a pretty good profit off of it, or he wouldn't have sold it.
Yeah. And,
like, everyone had a good time and it was fun. Like,
that's awesome. That is really, really awesome. I had heard, so I'm the world's biggest 5-year-old when it comes to magic. Like, I love magic, okay? And, like, I never want to know how they do these things because, like, the look on I don't want that sense of awe and that sense of wonder to ever go away. And I had heard something, it might have been from Penn and Teller or somebody like that, who said the difference between a con man and a magician is a magician has an agreement with the audience that I am going to trick you and that's acceptable. A con man does not have that implicit agreement. And I was like, huh, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, and kind of like what you were talking about there, like, you both know that you're playing this bartering game. And you know what? Hey, well played. Good job.
Yeah. But it was really funny because there were a couple of boys on the trip who thought that the best haggling was to get the cheapest deal, and they would make people mad. And it was like, no. Like, you have to do it, you know, you have to do it the right way. Like,
it very much is an art. Yes. That's awesome. That's, yeah, that good story. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So, yeah, we are definitely going to have you back on here. This was awesome. This was a lot of fun tonight.
Really fun. I'm so pleased to, like, finally met you.
Yeah, same. And for anybody out there, like, Liz and I, like, we may have, like, adjacently had known each other. And she and I had a phone call earlier today to touch base and to get ready for this. And didn't talk about really any of this. And yeah, this has been a blast. This has been a lot of fun. So I think folks out there are definitely enjoyed this. So thanks a lot for coming on here. I really appreciate this.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is really fun. This is a good way to spend a Friday night.
Seriously, right?
I mean, there's nowhere to go, but I would have enjoyed this anyway. So
you know what? That warms my heart. I appreciate it. So tell folks how they can get in touch with you, get a hold of you, etc.
Yeah, I'm Beyond Solitaire everywhere. Board Game Geek, Instagram, Twitter, beyondsolitaire@gmail.com, beyondsolitaire.net. My channel is called Beyond Solitaire, and my podcast is also called that. So I just have, like, the same name everywhere.
See, and very similar here with me, that it's just universal, makes it really easy. There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Liz. And we will definitely have to have you on to play a game and have you beat my brains in. That'll be a lot of fun.
I don't know if that'll happen, but we'll play and it'll be fun.
Deal. All right. Cool. All right. Everybody watching, thank you. Stay safe. Wear your masks. Continue social distancing. Be kind to one another, whether it's online or in person. It's not that hard. And I will be back Monday for the weekly look ahead for sure. We may have a surprise stream this week, or this weekend, I should say. So be sure to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. You want to support the show, you can go to pledgehc.com, support the show there. I certainly would appreciate it. And with that, thank you again, Liz. Thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good night. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.